Hello. Happy May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Ha ha. Anyway, I finished Star Wars Revenge of the Sith today. Felt appropriate. So this is a reread. But it's been a while, I guess, since I last read it because, I don't know, it just has. And I thought this is a good time to read it again because the Clone Wars TV show is having its last season. I just finished it. It was amazing and I'm really sad. But, and also there's just something about global pandemic. Everybody is like going through this. It's a stressful time. And Star Wars comes to us in this time of need, offering catharsis. So, this book. I fucking love this book. This is my favorite Star Wars book. It's one of my favorite books. I understand. I get it. It's a novelization of Revenge of the Sith. Doesn't have that much literary merit, you wouldn't think, but like, I feel like it does. It's so good. Okay, so it's Revenge of the Sith, so like, if you haven't seen that movie, why would you bother? But like, it's the best novelization I've ever read. Like, there's a couple of things that are different in here that I don't like, but for the most part, the changes are good. There's a lot of additional scenes. There's a lot of, like, looking into the characters' motivations and into what's going on in their heads in given moments. That's just excellent. There's focus on, like, well, on the obvious characters, yes, but I really like that there's focus on Mace Windu, too. Kind of, I don't know, maybe Stover just likes him or something, but Mace Windu's awesome, so I get it. We stan. What am I saying? I love this book. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. It's Star Wars. Yeah. I feel like there are a few things in the movie itself that the book can't quite capture, positive things, but it mostly does an amazing job of capturing what's good about the movie while also expanding on it and making a really good book. Because, like, let's be honest, Revenge of the Sith may be the best of the prequels, but that doesn't mean that the entire thing is watchable. I mean, it depends, I guess, on who you are, but it's not the point. The point is that this book is better than the movie, and yeah, I said it. So, I love this book, and, there's a lot of quotes in here that, like, I will never forget. They just kind of come into my mind, and reading it again was wonderful. And I am so glad that I did. So, absolutely worth it. Totally worth it. You know, and obviously I own this. This is my copy. I've had it for, like, I think at least since the movie came out. I don't think I acquired this much time after the movie came out, so, you know. I think this was published in 2005, so it's kind of old. What am I even saying? Who cares? 2005 is not old. It's not long ago. I remember 2005. But, it's a lot. And I also highly recommend it if you're a Star Wars fan and you haven't read it. You should, because it's amazing. And now, Enigma Tales by Una McCormack. Okay, so yes, that's the theme so far this month, but I promise that the rest of the things that I read in May are not gonna be books based on massively popular science fiction franchises. Okay, so this is a Deep Space Nine book. I really enjoyed it. I've been sitting on this for like 2 years since my sister bought it for me. Not reading it, I don't know why. And then I finally like, fuck, let's do it, right? So Una McCormack is one of my favorite Star Trek authors. She writes just really good Cardassians. That's kind of where her interest seems to lie. She writes an excellent Garrick. And, I haven't read a ton of Deep Space Nine books outside of the stuff that she's written. But yeah, so anyway, when I saw that this book existed, I knew that I had to read it at some point. I don't even know where to start here. Like, first of all, if you've never watched Deep Space Nine, like, don't read this book. I don't feel like it's gonna do much for you, because I think it has, like, merit as a piece of art by itself standing alone. However, there's a lot of context that you would not have. But the basic premise of this one is that Dr. Pulaski from Star Trek The Next Generation comes to Cardassia 10 years after the end of Deep Space Nine, basically. So there was a war that ended at the end of Deep Space Nine, and this is 10 years after that war. Okay. By this point, Garak has become the Castellan of Cardassia, and essentially what's going on is there's been this report that's been put out very recently about looking into actually prosecuting some people on the war crimes that they committed during the Bajoran occupation. And that's just kind of where it starts. And that's sort of the backbone of the book, I think. Which I think was interesting. And it ties into the idea of the Enigma tale. So the Enigma tale is a kind of short story or book, I guess, that exists in Cardassian culture, where they're murder mysteries, essentially, but the idea is that everybody is guilty of something. So that you're trying to figure out who's guilty of what. It's a little bit like And Then There Were None, right? Everybody in that book, spoilers, for a book from, like, the 20s, is guilty of something. Well, everybody's guilty of something in an Enigma tale. That's, like, the art form. They're considered kind of popular culture and a bit trashy, but I think they sound fun. But I think it's cool because they talk about that in this book. And the idea as well is that everyone past a certain age in Cardassia who was, like, doing stuff during the war and the occupation and everything, like, basically before the Dominion turned on them and blasted the fuck out of their world, everybody was guilty of something, including, of course, Garak. And the question of who do we prosecute and how is not the central thing that is being discussed in this book the most, but it's, like, there the whole time. But I enjoyed this. I did. I liked seeing Garak in the future as the Castellan. I always like Kellis Parmack, who is his friend, who might be his lover. That's never entirely clear. I always feel like Una McCormack, like, you know she ships it, right? She must. And Garak and Bashir. But there's, like, a line that can't be crossed in the books for some reason regarding that, so she's just, like, toes the line. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that it's a fun book about kidnapping and war crimes. Okay, so... Oh, the other thing. So I have not read a ton of the Deep Space Nine novels that actually lead up to this, but apparently something happened with Dr. Bashir, and he's in, like, a catatonic, almost coma-like state at this point. And for whatever reason, he has ended up in Garak's, like, care. So Garak keeps him just, like, in his Castellan's residence, and obviously, like, some doctor or other would be looking after him, but that's part of the story as well. Which I just thought was, like, you don't actually see Bashir until the end of the book, but I just thought that was so fucking sad. I got so sad when I was reading that part today. I was just like, Bashir didn't deserve this. And, like, on Deep Space Nine, he's definitely not my favorite character. But then I thought, well, is it even fair to say he's my least favorite of the main characters of Deep Space Nine? Because I still love him. It's just that Deep Space Nine has an amazing cast of characters. But anyway, I think in conclusion, if you're a Deep Space Nine fan, you should read this book. If you're not a Deep Space Nine fan, you should become one. Because Deep Space Nine is the best Star Trek. I said it. No takebacks. Okay. We're good. I think we're good. Also, this cover sucks. It's just like a dumb screen cap of Garak from the show stuck on, like, this is supposed to be Cardassia City, a city in Cardassia. And it's shit. But I don't feel like I've ever seen a Star Trek book with a good cover, so whatever. But yeah, okay, we're done. Enough. Shut up. I could talk about Deep Space Nine all day, but I'm not gonna. Hello. Alright, so I finished listening to The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller yesterday. Okay, so this one it's a retelling of sorts of parts of the Iliad and the Odyssey, but the primary focus is on Achilles' relationship with Patroclus, who is a character from the Iliad who is, in this book at least, Achilles' lover. And it's all from Patroclus' perspective, which, like, that immediately confused me because I was like, hang on, I know that he dies. Like, this is not a spoiler. Okay, we all know what happens to the Iliad. I mean, hopefully. Or if you don't know, you don't care. But yeah, I was like, so Patroclus dies before Achilles even does, so how are they going to handle this? But so that was kind of an interesting thing, the way that ended up working. But it was a pretty good book. Like, the language is very flowery. I wasn't as invested in their relationship as I hoped I would be. I think largely because Achilles was not very interesting. And the funny thing is that the most recent review I'd heard of it, somebody was saying basically Achilles is a horrible person. And I'm like, I was sitting there listening to the book waiting for him to become a horrible person, which was like the last quarter, right? Because like one of the things from the Iliad is that Achilles is an asshole, right? And he's very prideful. But like that stuff in this book doesn't happen until, like I said, the last quarter. So up to that point, I just thought he was kind of boring. I liked Patroclus because he actually, I mean, eventually, once he decided to finally start fucking doing something, rather than just sitting around doing nothing, but, I felt like he actually was a pretty good character who actually had, like, you know, he actually cared about somebody other than himself and his boyfriend. I really liked his relationship with Briseis. I don't know, like, it was, I liked Odysseus a lot. He's, you know, kind of, Odysseus has always been one of my favorites from that, you know, from that kind of thing. I know, it's like you read the Odyssey and Odysseus is not a good person, but, like, he's smart. And I'm simple. So I like a smart character. Or like somebody who's clever and witty and can trick people by using his smarts. So like Odysseus has that going for him, whereas a lot of the other characters in these kinds of Greek mythology are basically just there because they're strong, and that's boring. But anyway, it was interesting. I don't know why I was expecting it to be more realistic. Like, I don't know why, but it's not. It's definitely still like there are gods and they get trained by a centaur and stuff. Like, so all of that bullshit's still happening, which is great. But I don't know. I mean, I quite liked it. I had it on my 20 books to read list. I've had it on my TBR for like quite a while, so I'm glad I finally got to it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not coming out of it like, wow, this blew my mind. I just felt like I wish I'd been more invested in the main relationship, because then more of the kind of like high flowery language and like over the top stuff would have resonated with me more, but I wasn't, so it didn't. But it was still good. It kind of made me want to watch Troy again, which, like, Troy is a really stupid movie. Like, it's so stupid. It is not a great adaptation of the Iliad / the Odyssey / the Aeneid. That's the confusing thing, too, because I've read part of the Iliad, but the Iliad ends before any of the interesting stuff happens with the Trojan horse and with actually, like, actually ending the Trojan War. That stuff is in the Odyssey somewhat and in the Aeneid somewhat, just from the opposite perspectives. So like it's weird that that whole chunk of the story isn't told in one single story. Like, you have to read 3 to get the whole thing. But, also, nobody asked, but of the 3 books, poems, whatever, the Aeneid is the best one, in my opinion. Okay. The Iliad is the worst one. The Iliad is just, like, Achilles being a dumb bitch and people dying. Like, I didn't finish it because there were whole chapters that were just, like, lists of various people I'd never heard of dying in various ways. I'm like, I don't give a shit, Homer. Get back to the gods. Squabbling over dumb stuff. But anyway, whatever. I guess I feel like if you want a good look at that particular story in a single book, this is a good one to read. But it takes a while to get there. But anyway, I liked it. That's all I really have to say. Okay. Good enough. Alright, I got another one for you. Alas, Babylon by Pat Frank. Look at how cool this book looks. That's like why I picked it up at the library, because I just was like, it looks cool. Okay, so anyway, so this is a science fiction book, I guess technically. It's based on the premise of what if the Russians actually did bomb like every important city in the United States plus a bunch of military bases. And I suppose it's set roughly when the book was written, so the 50s, late 50s. And it's mostly about a group of people in Fort Repose, Florida, which is a little town about, I think it's supposed to be about an hour from Orlando. And how they go about surviving the end of civilization as they know it. I quite liked it. It was, a lot of it was about just the basic day-to-day, like how do they get food, how do they get around, you know, how do they travel, how do they continue to survive, I like that kind of thing. It definitely had some fairly grating sexism. I was especially noticing as I was finishing it, just like towards the very end, that just some bits where I was like, no, thank you. But, yeah, it has some racism too, but I feel like the author was attempting to essentially just make the point of like, it doesn't matter that, like, these people are black, they're still people and they're still helpful, and like, there's this family that lives next door to, like, the main character. So, you know, that wasn't too bad. But yeah, I liked it. I'd never heard of this book before, but, it was really good. I don't know, I don't feel like there's that much to say about it. That's just kind of what it is. It's pretty simple, but, it gets its point across, I guess. I'm not really sure what's supposed to be happening with this hand, but I like the cover. Okay, that's enough. We'll just keep that quick. I liked it. Okay, Sharp Objects. No book to hold up because this was my audiobook, so I'm really tearing through some of those. It's not a very long book though, so it didn't take long to listen to, but it was fantastic. So Sharp Objects is a thriller / murder mystery from 2005 or something, I don't know. But anyway, I liked Gone Girl, so I figured, yeah, let's try another Gillian Flynn. And I heard really good things about, or maybe it's Gillian Flynn. I'd heard really good things about Sharp Objects. And I watched most of the TV show, but I hadn't finished it, so I didn't know who the murderer was. So I figured it was the perfect time to actually just, like, read the book. It was really good. It really was. I thought it was, like, really well written. The characters were all interesting. I did figure out who did the murder successfully, so I was pretty proud of myself, because there was just kind of me reading it and being like, if it's not this character, then nothing makes sense thematically. But then it was, so it was perfect. And also, the TV show was really good. I would recommend it. Amy Adams is fantastic as Camille, the main character. But yeah, it's really disturbing, and like a lot of it is just like kind of psychologically disturbing. I don't know, like Camille's relationship with her mother is so fucked up. Her mother is horrible. There's a lot of just like emotional abuse and gaslighting and like just creepiness, and I'm gonna stay spoiler free, but I will say the one thing that creeped me out the most is where they found the teeth. Just leave it at that. But if you've read the book, then you know what I'm talking about. Where they found the teeth. I was like, oh no, I don't like that at all. Yeah, so this is just an absolutely fantastic book. And I 100% recommend it. Like, I know I don't read that many thrillers, so, you know, almost everything impresses me. But no, this one was, like, really good. Like, yeah, like, ooh, like, really good. I don't know what I'm doing. Alright, but, you should read it.